You are looking at the smallest, quietest sync sound 35mm camera ever made. And when you look at it compared to cameras like the LTR and the XTR Prod, even the SR3, it's really not that much bigger. When I first saw this camera in person, I was shocked. It has a 16mm viewfinder, it has a 16mm video tap, it has the same motor as the XTR Prod. I looked at it and I was like, I can't believe this thing. It's like a larger version of an XTR Prod. It's like the same camera. And it's not quite the same camera. It's got a little more idiosyncrasies than the XTR Prod does. But for a very small 35mm camera, it is incredible what you get in this package. Let's get right into it. And we're going to talk about the features, and we're going to talk about loading the magazine as well. So this camera was first developed in the late 80s. It was a very different camera originally. It uses a displacement magazine, meaning that the film, the 4.5-foot roll takes up most of the magazine, and then as the film loads on the other side, it displaces the other side. And we're going to go over the magazine in great detail. But the displacement magazine design's been around since the very beginning. This is the 35III. This is the last generation of this camera. They made a 35, a 35II, and a 35III. And they're all different cameras. The parts aren't interchangeable. They're totally different cameras. The 35III is the only one that has XTR type components on it.
And what we have here is our main display assembly, very similar to the XTR, with our adjustment buttons over on this side, our adjustment knob over here, which allows for the increase and decrease of numbers on the display. We have our run test switch. Run is down, test is up. And this is where our battery goes. We use NP11 style batteries, and we stick these batteries in here, and that powers up our camera. On the front of the camera, we have a standard Airy style PL mount and 15mm rail holders. This little screw here, right here, is actually for the pitch control. And every 35III camera comes with a tool that allows us to open up this hole and stick a tool in here to actually make a pitch adjustment. I suggest trying this if your camera's loud. Put this tool in before you run film through, and then turn the knob to adjust pitch either direction. And then when done, make sure you close the little door and lock it down. I'm not quite sure if this is on all the cameras, but most of the ones I've seen have had this adjustment. And this tool, this pitch control tool, goes in the handle, just like the XTR parts do. The viewfinder assembly is very much like the XTR. The diopter is up here. On this side of the camera, you have, this is a VHR. This is the high resolution video tap. This camera, unlike the XTRs and LTRs, uses two motors. One motor is a tri-phase that runs the mechanism, and this motor runs the magazine. This lever here is the unlock for the magazine, very similar to the unlock on the XTR and LTRs.
This is the highest quality tap they made for this camera, called the VHR. It's still standard definition, but it's very, very good quality. Same type of quality as the VHR for the Xterra. The 35III has a very similar mag, which pops off the back just like that, to the XTR Prod. And it is a very quick loading camera. All you do is basically take the magazine and push it onto the back of the camera, and it lines up and you're back running again. If it was only that simple. It uses the same accessories as the XTR Prod. It's got the same exact rail kit as the XTR Prod. I have a different handle for it because it weighs more, and so I have a different type of grip handle for it. And this camera uses the same NP1 battery solution that my XTR Prod uses, which I think is the best solution on the market. These VariZoom batteries have D-taps on them. They run at 14.5 volts. These adapters are hard to get to make the battery work, but if you don't want to use these adapters and you just want to use this battery, you can buy a little cup that plugs into here, that plugs into the 4-pin power input, no problem at all. The 35III uses the same exact optics as the XTR Prod. It uses the same exact extension viewfinders, the zoom extension viewfinder, the long tube extension viewfinder, and then the shorty extension viewfinder, which most cameras come with nowadays. It has the tools up above here, just like the XTR Prod. This tool is for the changing of the shutter angle, and the other tool is for adjusting the pitch. Unlike 16mm cameras, the 35 cameras do need a pitch adjustment every once in a while to change between different film stocks. Fortunately enough, Kodak is the only manufacturer of film, so pitch isn't really a big deal anymore. Let's talk about the mysteries inside a 35III magazine. The 35III magazine is one of the most difficult magazines to load for 35mm cameras. And I'm going to tell you this straight up, it is not easy. So when you see me do it, and it takes me 4 seconds to do it, just be reminded that that's because I do it every day, all day long. The camera magazines have a boot on them, very similar to the 16mm magazines.
What you're going to first do is unlock the latches at the bottom to open up the magazine. And inside you're going to see the take-up is probably gone because somebody pulled the roll of film out of it. The first step we're going to do is we're going to move the core from the supply to the take-up. So we're going to unscrew this, take the core off, and we're going to turn it around so that it's facing the right direction. And the most important thing with this magazine is to set it down flat. There's a pin right here that you can see right there. That pin needs to go into one of these holes. So you got to go ahead and put it on flat, make sure it's totally flat, and then you're going to have to lock this like so. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to slide this whole assembly this way because it's a displacement magazine and needs to displace basically the film. So as a consequence, we have to slide this whole piece this way. So we're going to go ahead and slide it that way. That noise is totally normal. Once it's all the way this direction, we're going to go ahead and unlock these guys here. These are the keepers that hold the film against the sprocket. Now, your roll of film is going to be loaded with the film facing up. So the film is going to be facing upwards like this. And we're going to load it like this. It's going to go straight on, and then it's going to fit between these two rollers. This roller and this roller. It needs to fit between these rollers. If the roll of film in this full position over here, if the roll of film does not fit between these rollers and the roll of film is too big, it will not work. There needs to be plenty of room here. See how there's a little bit of gap right here? That's what you need to have. A real 400-foot roll of film from Kodak will fit, and there will be a gap there. But if you have 425 feet or 410 feet, it will not work in this magazine, and the magazine will jam. So you can only run 400 feet in this magazine.
Then you're going to take your finger and you're going to twist the little nub in the center, which expands and holds the film in place.
So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to thread the camera all the way through. We're going to pull out a ton of film, and we're going to go all the way around here. So these first three rollers are on the lower side of the film. And then what we're going to do is we're going to wrap around the stabilizer. And then we're going to go out the upper sprocket like that. All right? So that's the first thing we're going to do. So lower, 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 upper, upper, upper. That's a good way to remember how the whole thing goes. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to wrap it around, and we're going to wrap it through here. And we're going to make a little flag. And we're going to put this flag onto our take-up reel, just like that, right? And that's all we're going to do right now. Now we're going to lock these guys in place next. Lock and lock. And now that'll hold this loop in position. This loop is kind of irrelevant, but you still want to have a loop here, okay? This is too big, but we're going to fix it in a minute. Next thing we want to do, now that we've got these locked in place, next thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and we want to spin this a couple times to make sure that there's no catching. When the mag doesn't work right, this will not be smooth. It'll make noise, but this is really smooth. As you can hear, it's nice and smooth, right? And now we can go ahead and we can close this. So we're going to close this just like that, and we're going to lock it. And now we can take this and bring it out of the bag. So you're going to see a couple things on this magazine. One, you're going to see a counter. Now these counters have a problem, which is that they're not very accurate when the magazine's old. So don't trust it unless you replace the supercapacitors, and we'll do a video about how to do that eventually. But this counter is not telling you anything until it's loaded onto the camera, okay? So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make this loop size the right loop size. So we're going to hit this push to adjust loop, And we're going to turn this wheel until that loop condenses a little bit. Because we only want 3 fingers. So we're going to take our 3 fingers, and we're going to push it in here, and we're going to twist. And if our 3 fingers just kind of fit, that's it. Now, what I also do is I make sure that there's enough, when I push down on this, I want to make sure there's enough gap for a finger at top and bottom. And if there is, then we're good to go. There's no, unlike the Super 16 cameras, there's no perf count on this camera. It's basically between 2 and 3 fingers, and I like to kind of make it about 2.5 fingers. But since 3 fingers is almost 2.5 fingers, I think I leave it around there. And then basically you're going to take this magazine and push it onto the back of the camera. The magazine has a key on the bottom of it right here, and that key goes in a keyway at the bottom, and there's a pin at the top here, and that pin goes into a pin at the top. So it has to be put on very square. So you're going to put it on very square and give it a good push. You'll hear that locking noise. I'll do it one more time. That locking noise is what you're looking for. If you do not hear that noise, it's not on. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to do the test, and we're going to be listening for a click, very similar to the XTRs. So we're going to go test first. 1 test. There was a click. We're going to do one more time to hear if there's a click. If you don't hear a click a second time, you're probably in pretty good shape. So now we can go to run. And it says loop. That means that our loop is the wrong size. Now, generally that means that the loop has changed. So we're going to pull off the mag and make sure our loop size is still pretty good, which it is in this case. So we're going to put it back on again. And then we're going to try the whole process one more time. So we're going to go test, no click, test, no click, and then we're going to try it one more time. And now it's running properly. Now you notice the counter shows nothing. And that's very common for this magazine to show no, because this magazine needs new batteries. It's very common for it to show 0, but a good magazine would at this point in time show some sort of a number. It shows up generally pretty fast. The menus are very straightforward, very similar to the XTR Prod. When you want to hit something, you're going to go ahead and hit set, and you're going to go sync, and then you can make the adjustment on this knob back here. So this is our sync sound speeds. The camera goes up to 40 frames a second. We'll back that down to 24 again. And then if you want to set any other thing, you can set it by hitting the set and then whatever you're hitting. In this case, this is our bat. It's 14 volts. This is our ISO 500. This is what's burned into the film when the film is being shot. And this is our this is how much film is left in the magazine. It's Mag O, and it has 188 feet left in it last time it checked. A lot of people ask how to change the shutter angle on the 35III. So we're going to go ahead and show you how to do that. First thing to do is pull the battery out of the camera. You do not want the camera to turn on while doing this process. You're going to take your finger and slowly move the shutter until this gold gear exposed. See this little gold gear? This gold gear's got to line up with this hole right here. So you're going to go like this and line up with the hole. Then you're going to take the tool, and you're going to put the tool between the gold gear like that. And then what's going to happen is you're going to make the adjustment, and you'll see the shutter expand. So now the shutter says 144, and it says 172. So right now it's set to 144. It's the nearest number at the beginning, at the inside, that the number that's set at. And you're going to back it back down again, and you can go ahead and do one rotation of the mirror to make sure it doesn't go backwards, and you're good to go. This is the gate assembly on the 35III, and there are magnets here and down here that allow the magnetized pressure plate to keep the proper distance, the proper gap. And so these are the magnets that keep the proper gap. It's a spring-loaded system, so you'll see that there's a spring right here. If this spring does not work, your film's going to come out like crap. It's going to be shaky and jittery. So you have to make sure that there is tension here on this spring, and emulsion can build up underneath this and can get it stuck in the back position like that. So you want to make sure that you clean this out and make sure it's clean at least every couple of rolls of film. This is a 3-perf camera. You can see it's a 1:7:8 aspect ratio.
And a lot of people like 3-perf, especially myself, because if you want to format for HD, you can format for HD without cropping anything off. If you want to format for 1.8.5, you just crop the top and the bottom off a little bit. If you want to format for 2:1, you just crop the top and bottom a little bit off. But when are you ever formatting like 4-perf for 4:3? Never. You're never shooting 4x3. And if you are, then you're spending a lot of money and you're going to shoot 4perf. But to save time, 3perf is 25% less film. A 400-foot load of 3perf lasts a little bit less than 6 minutes. It's about 5.5 or so once you load it and everything like that. It's about 5.5. And that's not bad, you know? It's not like 4perf. A 400-foot roll of 4perf is less than 5 minutes, you know? So you're gobbling it up really fast, you know? So the biggest thing about this camera is it's very sensitive to everything, you know? It's sensitive to the magazines. You know, I have 12 magazines for it. Some of them are very quiet. Some of them are louder. You know, I've tuned them and they'll get quiet, and then they'll 3 or 4 rolls of film later, they'll get loose again and they'll get loud again. The mag drive makes some noise. The pull down makes some noise. They're relatively easy to work on and adjust internally. The movement's pretty easy, but they do have a belt drive to kind of keep it quieter, and that belt can go bad. So that's one thing to think about. The mags have belts as well, so that's another thing to think about. The 35III is a really incredible camera, though. It's very, very small. It's smaller than the Penelope, which is the model that came after this. It doesn't have the same features as the Penelope. The Penelope is a better camera, of course, but the 35III is a very, very nice camera. It is definitely a camera that I've really enjoyed owning and shooting with. I've been using it for many years now. I do rent it on occasion, but very rarely. I use it for most of my own productions. I like 3perf. A lot of my friends like 2perf, and they never really made a 2perf version of this camera, though it'd be cool to have one for sure. And I think that overall, when I look at my usage of this camera, I would say that it's done me really well. You know, I love the lightweight body. I hate the fact it makes a little bit too much noise.
I don't know, Brad. I don't know how to trust you. You hurt me. You ripped my heart out and took it from me. You say it's up to me? It's not. Because I don't have what you took. That choice doesn't belong to me. It's up to you. Do you understand that?
You know, if you're in a quiet area and it's dead quiet, you know, might not be the right camera for you. You know, you might want to do a dialogue scene with like a BL4 or a 535 or, you know, an Airy cam or a movie cam or something that's a real quiet sync sound camera, and save this camera for all the handheld lightweight stuff, you know. The movies this camera's been on have not been shot entirely with this camera. In fact, I'm unaware of any movie, feature film that's been shot entirely with this camera. It's always been a mix of this camera and a sync sound camera. But yeah, that's the rundown on this camera. The rest of the stuff on the camera, like how to run the video tap and all that stuff, it's all available online. It's super easy to learn. You know, all the ports and everything like that are super easy to understand online as well through the manual. I don't really want to go into too many details on that stuff because it's, you know, you need to kind of read on it. You know, I can't make a 3-hour video about the details. But that's my video on the 35III. I hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully we'll see you for more videos in a little bit.